Yeah, my name is Jim Collins. I'm president of ACE Doran. I'm actually in my second tour with ACE. I was here as a young man back in the 80s. I ran a terminal down in Winchester, Kentucky, then Lexington, Kentucky. I was here for 7 years during that period of time, and then was gone for 27 and came back in 2014. So I'm in my 6th year as president, and it's been a great second run for sure. My journey in the industry is absolutely a credit to my father. My dad worked for ACE Doran literally from the time I can remember, and so all growing up through the years was my dad, and he loved ACE Doran as a company. He loved trucking as an industry. He was so proud of what he did and so proud of the role that trucking played. And I remember as a little kid when we were on vacation, you know, if we were, say, northbound on I-75, and we'd pass an ACE Doran truck or two ACE Doran trucks going southbound on 75. My dad, me and my siblings would joke about it. He would almost go off the road. He'd do this, hey, ACE Doran, ACE Doran. And he just loved it. And I think the fact that he loved his work so much, you know, he came home in a positive attitude. He was an upbeat guy. You know, if he had a job that he hated, I'm sure he would have come home and I would have thought, well, I sure don't want to do that for a living. But he loved ACE Doran, he loved trucking, and so actually early on I was lucky enough when I was in grade school to be able to take some trips with him. Back in those days, carriers had to be granted different pieces of authority by the Interstate Commerce Commission. So one of the roles that my dad played at ACE Doran, they only had like 3 states of authority when he started, and he spent a lot of time going to the ICC hearings in Washington to help expand ACE Doran's footprint. Well, part of that process was you had to line up what they called shipper support to be able to make a case to the ICC that you should be granted this additional piece of authority. So in the summertime when I was on vacation from school, my dad was traveling around to go see different shippers preparing for these hearings. If he knew the customers well enough, I was allowed to go with him. So I was in steel mills and machinery manufacturers and different places as a little kid and with my dad just on day trips. And again, it just inspired my love of trucking and what he did, you know, and ACE Doran specifically at a very early age. So if it weren't for my dad, there's no question I wouldn't be here today, I'm sure. I came back to ACE Doran in 2014 as Director of Business Development. As I mentioned, I had been at another open deck carrier for 27 years after I left ACE Doran. So I came back in 2014, spent 2 years as Director of Business Development, recruiting agents, customers, you know, trying to expand our footprint and expand some of the freight that we haul and that sort of thing. And then I became president in January of 2016. Bennett bought ACE in September of 2013, actually a few months before I came to work for ACE. And it's just made all the difference in the world. I really honestly think one of my biggest jobs was to help ACE Doran transition from what for many years had been a family-owned company to now a company that was owned by Bennett out of Georgia. You know, they wanted us to do things a certain way. You know, we wanted to be part of that culture, but many of the employees had been at ACE for many years, again, as an independent family-owned company. So there was a transition period, just kind of a culture change period to kind of get everybody on board. And it really has turned out to just be tremendous. The things that Bennett brings, I really don't think that ACE Doran could have done on its own. Marketing, certainly technology, no question about that. Financial strength, there's a number of things that, you know, ACE Doran being purchased by Bennett. And again, in the early stages, it was a difficult transition. There were people that weren't real happy about that transition. But after we kind of figured our way through all that, it has really allowed us to grow the company exponentially in the last 4 or 5 years in particular. So that marriage or merger between Bennett and ACE has just been hugely beneficial.